Welcome to All Things Social Security. Enjoy your video. Good morning, afternoon, or evening. I'm doing a little share here on a question that we had on one of the posts, and I have got my new friend. This is Tasha. She is the biggest honey ever. And we made this little, Akaka, you gonna say hi? We made this little perch for her so she could be in the office. So I tried to turn everything so she could get in here if she wasn't gonna be too shy. Here. Yeah, yeah. Hello. Say hello. She says it better than that, generally. Anyway, this is from a poster on the YouTube channel. And he asks, how common is it to have the DDS overstate your RFC limitations? And he goes on to say that he has a host of musculoskeletal issues, including bilateral rotator cuff tears, spinal stenosis, carpal tunnel, severe osteoarthritis in the back, hip, knees, ankles, bone spurs, and plantar fasciitis. So there's a lot going on, right? Musculoskeletally with this gentleman. And on recon, he says RFC said light. Now, first I want to say you're not going to know what is found on recon unless you have the disability determination explanation, the DDE, that you probably can't get easily if you don't have an attorney or a representative who's connected with the SSA and can get into your electronic file. However, you do have a right to ask for it from your field office, and they're supposed to send it to you. That can take a little bit of a doing. It's kind of not right. And let me just click this. Sorry about that. So, the gentleman goes on to say that he can't imagine standing for 2 hours, let alone up to 6 hours out of an 8-hour day, which is what light generally entails, 5 days per week. Sounds like a hearing is coming up, and he's concerned that this will be an issue. So I did a typed response, but I wanted to get into it a little more in depthly. So the original question is, how common is it to have the DDS overstate your RFC limitations? I think what he meant to say is understate the RFC limitations, or conversely, overstate the RFC, but not the limitations part, but the capacity part. So, hey Tosh, that is extremely common. And I think when my response was just about 100% of all cases that go on to win at hearing, the DDS somehow underestimated the limitations, or conversely overstated the capacities that are remaining, the residual capacities. And that can be from a variety of reasons. It could be that they are just doing their checkbox thing and nothing lines up perfectly, even though it's definitely in reality disabling. It can also be, and this is oftentimes, I believe claimants are lacking the most robust evidence they could get because they just either didn't know that they should go get it, or they knew it, but it was inconvenient, and they maybe perhaps a little stubbornly, like we can all be when it comes to going to doctors, may have just kind of refused to do more because, gosh darn it, I'm disabled, so give it to me. And, I get the sentiment entirely, but that's not going to help, because if there isn't the robust evidence needed to be able to collect funds from a disability fund, because you have to prove you're disabled from all jobs, even when you're going to try to grid out at 50, and I think this gentleman is 50, you still have lots of proof to do. You've got thousands of jobs to disprove. So, and it's in a different kind of way when you're over 50, but it still has to be done in the way it has to be done. And it all depends on that medical evidence of record. But that is basically probably the argument that is always made in a general statement, of course, is that the DDS overestimated the capacities, and that this person is more limited than the DDS gave him credit for. And here's why. And note that in the DDE, the DDS generally gives all the medicals that they reviewed to come to their RFC decision. If you think the same evidence you had on initial is going to work for a reversal just because it's a different person, it's not going to happen. I think they give each other a little bit of respect, and they're all taught under the same rules in that office, right? So if you didn't meet muster on initial and you have not done anything differently, it's just same old, nothing shows something worse than and if it's because your RFC is, say, light and you're 50, which means you can't grid out, then you're probably going to get stuck with that on recon. So I think it's really, really important to look at what they had. I mean, hopefully you have a representative who's telling you where you could strengthen, which are your weakest parts and how you could strengthen them. They will become the backbone of your case. But if not, you have to look at all of those things. Are you going to an orthopedist regularly? And I don't mean once a year. If this is bad enough to keep you from working, which is the major thing we do during our lives, then it's deserving of a specialist, isn't it? And to not do it if you're able to, and 99% probably are capable because they either have regular insurance, spousal insurance, or Medicaid, it kind of behooves you to do it, or else you're making a statement without speaking if you don't think it's important enough to go. Your pain isn't that bad. Your limitations are certainly not that invasive on your quality of life. So walk the walk of what you're claiming is your impairments and the severity. And by and large, you're going to find, because I know when people contact me, it becomes pretty clear if they're disabled or not under the rules. And of course, being disabled under the rules does not mean you have to be an invalid and unproductive and not be able to, wipe your own butt or go to the grocery store. There's no cut and dry way to be disabled, but it certainly doesn't mean that you have to be entirely unproductive and bedridden or wheelchair. But you still have to prove all the things. When someone talks about severe this in the back, hips, knees, ankles, bone spurs, then you should be having current evidence of that. That would include if your diagnostics for each and every body part is more than a year old, for sure, go get a new one. And if, let's say you had one in the beginning of recon and now you're heading into hearing, and let's say your recon was a year ago, get one now. Get one before your hearing. And if you start to breathe down the neck of the 5-day business rule, evidence rule, I mean, it's the 5 business day rule that applies to getting in your evidence. Day 10 before your hearing, contact the OHO in writing, fax it in. If you can upload it, all the more better. Letting them know that you have this MRI coming up in, 10 days after the hearing. Can we please leave the hearing open to get those results? And I don't think I've ever had a request for something of that magnitude that has been declined. Now, if you say, well, I'll be starting PT in 2 months, can we keep the hearing open for 2 months until I get 2 months or another 2 months? They're not going to say yes to that, obviously. Can't leave it open forever. But if you have something already scheduled and it's not too far in the future, I would do that so that you can get that evidence in before the judge. But don't be overly concerned about what the DDS said if you know you've been doing your part, even very proactive. The DDS often states, I would say, an overestimation of capacities or an underestimation of limitations. And that's how they kind of can kick the ball down the road so that someone with discretion can take a closer look, and that's the ALJ. That's what it appears to be to me and has for about 20 years now. So anywho, I wish you luck, Carolina. And you might have a decent chance. You're R50, so that's where you have to prove that you literally have to be sitting for 6 to 8 hours. You could still do a sedentary job. That's totally fine as long as your old job does not transfer. None of those skills transfer, right? And that you can't do your old job, of course. All right, I'm gonna call it a day here and say she's sleeping. Tosh, she's got an appointment with a veterinarian office, the only one we could find her on here, that clips toenails because her toenails are like this. And as you know, we just got her. So it took me, there was a couple weeks out for the appointment, but can't wait because I cannot stand it. It's not even safe for her. I mean, she's fine on a perch and stuff like that, and she has big perches in her condominium. But if she tries to walk on something really tiny, like she has this ladder, her toenails can get her caught. I watched it. It was pretty bad. I got a little bite because of it. But she didn't bite me as hard as she could have. In fact, surprisingly. But she was scared, and I felt so bad for her. Okay, I'll talk to you guys later, and once she gets out of her appointment, that should be this week, by the way. I think it's Thursday. I think I have to change one of my appointments so that we can take her. Yeah. But I can't wait to get them fixed for her. All right, I'll talk to you guys later. Say bye. Yeah, bye. Can you say bye, Tosh? Bye-bye. She's tired. She's very mellow. All right, guys. Have a great rest of your day. Jeff. Hello again. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope it was helpful, if not just a little bit informative. In the event you have a Social Security question you want addressed, please feel free to make a comment below and ask the question, even if nothing to do with this particular video. And just a quick, again, reminder, we have our daily video shares and tips around noon every day of the week. And on Wednesdays at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we have our live Q&A session where you can come in live and enter your questions in the chat. And we all pretty much have a good time for an hour or two. I look forward to seeing you there, hopefully. And lastly, don't forget about our benefactor memberships. They're very reasonably priced. The first one is very nominal and you get a few perks, but on a bigger scale, it contributes to us being able to fulfill a mission of assisting certain people with representation that would otherwise not be able to get it. We look forward to continuing to do that. And so far it's working out like the bomb. So thank you for being here. I appreciate it. Bye-bye now.